Okay, John sent me this tweet yesterday. Tell the backstory on this, John.
Yeah, yesterday we talked about, it started actually by talking about Kansas City, and we talked about how Mayor Quentin Lucas over in Kansas City goes on Pete Mundo's show. Pete's a conservative. Quentin is, you could call him a center-left guy. I wouldn't call him a huge progressive, but a center-left guy. And we talked about the value in the broader context of national figures or Missouri figures or local figures having conversations with folks that aren't just throwing them softballs. And whether it's a good idea or not, whether it's better for discourse, whatever. And you and I disagreed on this. And the fact that I say, if you're Tishaura Jones, don't go on any station that's going to ask you a hard question. Don't go on 97.1. And we specifically called out Mark Bland, who's up at KYRO, that's 105.3 FM, 12. I think they're 1280 AM, but that's based out of Troy. And Mark is a center-left guy who hosts a show on Thursday nights. And I said, you don't want to go there because he's going to ask you hard questions. You don't want to go anywhere where they're going to ask you hard questions. Keep it to super friendly media. Now, I tweeted this out, Brad, and whenever we have an interesting segment on the show, I'll tweet it out. And out of respect to the people that we talk about, I'll usually tag them. So I tagged St. Louis Mayor Tishaura Jones and Mark Bland. Anyway, it led to a unique exchange. Mark kind of piled on and was like, hey, we'd love to have Tishaura Jones on, something to that effect. And what's unique is that Connor Kerrigan, who is the spokesman for St. Louis Mayor Tishaura Jones, went back and forth with Mark. And Connor he used what is traditionally a right-wing insult, which paradoxically, and he responded to Mark and said, I'm not her campaign manager, and you've never reached out for an interview, you smooth-brained clown. Now, calling somebody a smooth brain over the years has been like a right-wing kind of like smooth brain versus rough brain thing. It's been kind of a right-wing internet meme. But I thought it was clever from Connor, by the way. But it goes to show, Brad, in the broader context of, do you want to, if you're Tishaura Jones, do you want to have conversations with people who are not who are not bought and paid for, who are not friendly media? And before I forget, Brad, I should point out that Mark said that we could read this on the air today. He said, if Mayor Jones would like to come on our show, meaning his show that he has with his co-host Jason, she is more than welcome to. And we will show her the same respect that we would show anybody else who's ever been on our show. So I just thought it was a unique exchange, Brad. I think that, and by the way, for Connor Kerrigan, he used to write for Scott Fawn's publication, the Missouri Times. So I give anybody that ever worked for Scott, in my mind, I keep them on a very long leash because I give them a lot of credit. If Scott hired them, he knows that Connor is very good. Connor is a really good writer. He did a Substack for a while. He's a very accomplished communicator. But I just thought it was a unique exchange. And I also like the phrase smooth-brained, which I think is unique.
John, I must be living a sheltered life because I've never heard the phrase smooth brain in my life.
Really?
You don't
spend enough time on right-wing meme boards like 4chan, Brad.
I
You
guess
clearly
I
don't
don't
spend enough time there.
Yeah, well,
and by the
God I
way, this
don't.
is the other thing. In the pro wrestling vernacular, Mark is going in next year to the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame. In the wrestling world, there's like a shoot and a work. Like a shoot is real, and then a work is you're kind of working with somebody. This conversation on Twitter, a.k.a. x.com, went from being kind of a shoot work to it looks like being kind of a shoot. I think these guys, if I was Connor or I was any Democrat in the St. Louis area, I would look at people who are consistently promoting a Democrat or progressive message, and I would look at them as allies. And I would think, hey, if Mark Bland is out here every week talking about progressive politics, particularly on a station and in a region that's pretty conservative, I would look at a guy like Mark as an ally. But I'm not paid to give Democrats advice. And Connor got where he is by being very good. I'm thinking maybe Connor just didn't know that where Mark is coming from politically. You get what I'm saying?
Well, okay, couple things. First off, question for you. S-H-O-O-T or C-H-U-T-E?
S-H-O-O-T, like a shoot fight. Yeah, not a shoot like you put something down laundry in the olden days.
Okay. First question is, that was my first question. Second question is, don't you think that the enlightened political people have seen the situation with the Trump-Kamala Harris race we just got out of, where she became very, very, very aloof with the media, and specifically she only wanted to appear on places that were on her side and give her softball questions, which I think ultimately worked against her. Don't you think that people are seeing the light, even to the point where, remember we talked about this yesterday, the day before, about the, I can't remember the expert who was saying, the part of the problem that Kamala had was she was not tested. She did not have the experience of.
And it was maybe Katie Couric, or it was someone else.
Yes.
No, I agree, Brad. But I would go back to the point. As much as I would love to hear Tishaura Jones on Mark Bland's show or on Ryan Haidt's show or any of these shows, if I'm working for Tishaura, I say absolutely no way. Like I'm gonna have you sit down with Alexis Zotos, or I'm gonna have you sit down with somebody friendly, and they can ask you some pretty basic questions that we get in advance, or maybe not in advance. But let's sit down with somebody who we know is pretty friendly, and we can kind of work it, you know.
But see, once again, now explain to me what is Connor? What is his official position? If he denied that he's her campaign manager, what does he do?
Well, you know very well, Brad. There's a difference between being on a campaign side and being on the official side. He's the communications director, as I understand it, for both the mayor of St. Louis and then St. Louis city government. I'm looking at his bio right now on his X account. So, Brad, he's working on behalf of the mayor in her official capacity. He's not tasked with thinking about, in theory, he's not tasked with thinking about a 2025 campaign. He's thinking about the priorities for the people of St. Louis City and the mayor. So in his defense, Brad, he's not paid by the campaign to set up campaign speeches and campaign talks. You get what I'm saying? So if there's and one more thing. So if there's a big crime issue, let's say, a guy like Connor would help tell the mayor's side of the crime story to media outlets and other folks like that. He's not tasked with thinking, okay, how do we have to perform in Ward 10 to get more votes than Cara Spencer? You get what I'm saying?
I do. I mean, but you describe Mark Bland as being left center, so wouldn't that be?
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't that be of interest to Tishaura to go on his show?
I think so. Now, again, if I'm Tishaura's team, I say, look, Mark is out in Lake St. Louis. Now, Mark also has a syndicated show. If I was inside the campaign and I was looking for a reason to sit down with a guy like Mark or anybody else that was moderate or left to center, I would think, let's go on Mark's show. Let's do an interesting conversation. Let's capture that content. And then we put it on our campaign website. And then we use sound clips, or like we do anything to generate a little bit of buzz or a little bit of interest. Again, that's the campaign side. That's not the Mayor Tishaura Jones talking about crime and economic development. You get what I'm saying?
I do. I mean, do you think Tishaura's got any kind of serious challenge? Do you think she's going to be a slam dunk for re-election? Do you really?
Yeah, absolutely. She's in for a tough fight, for sure.
Okay, and who do you think, if they're going to be your number one contender, who would that be?
Cara Spencer.
You really think that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, who else would it be, Brad?
Well, I don't know.
And let's not forget, she also, we've talked on this show several times, Brad, a gentleman named Michael Butler, who I believe is either recorder of deeds or collector. This shows how little I know about the city, to be honest. I believe he's recorder of deeds. And he's the most recent chairman of the Missouri Democratic Party. So and he's a former state representative. He's a real contender. And particularly if he splits the black vote, it gives Cara Spencer a little bit better path.
Once again, I go back to my thing of the Westplex Chamber of Commerce. Okay, I will tell you up front, I was born at Barnes Hospital in St. Louis. For the first 4 years of my life, I lived in North City, okay? I'm a North City guy, just like Keo is, right? He's a North City guy as well, too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, okay. If I'm from the city, I would quibble with that and say, Brad, you left at a young age and you left St. Louis County at a young age. But you were born in North St. Louis City, it's fair to say.
Born at Barnes Hospital, lived in North City, lived a couple.
And you chose to leave.
No, my parents chose to leave.
Okay, but you choose to not move and live at Natural Bridge and Kings Highway today.
I don't think it
right?
was.
You choose to not eat Red Hot. Well, you do eat Red Hot.
Can I tell you something
Keep going,
right,
Brad.
John?
Your point is that you're a North St. Louis City guy.
Can I tell you something right now?
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of that. I mean, if someone called me up and said, "Hey, Brad, I know you're a St. Charles County guy. You know, you love St. Charles County, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I got a place for you down at Union and pick a cross street. Union, I mean,
Union and Delmar. I wouldn't go there in broad daylight, but clearly you would.
I have no problem with that. I have no problem at all.
Well, good for you.
I mean, if someone offered me a house there, I'd go and I'd fix it up and I'd live there. I mean, once again, and people are going like, "Oh, I bet he would." Once again.
I believe you. And let me interrupt before you keep going. Michael Butler is the first African-American millennial to be elected recorder of deeds. So, yes, Michael Butler has indicated he's also running for mayor. I'm sorry to interrupt, Brad. Go ahead.
Well, the entire region needs to get a dose of Rodney King. And Rodney King, his famous comment,
by that you mean LSD. They need to take LSD and get beaten by the cops.
No, they need to say, can't we all just get along? And see, once again, it's even to the point where I was at a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and I thought this was very interesting. Steve Ellman used to do, I don't know if he still does this, he would go to various chambers. Once a year, he would give his state of the county message to the various chambers. This was in the O'Fallon chamber. And he purposely put a map up on the screen on his PowerPoint presentation, and he showed the city, St. Louis County, and St. Charles County, how they adjoin a butt, okay? And he pointed to the fact that there's a demarcation line in the city and the county called the Delmar Divide. You know about this, correct?
Yeah, I happened to live there for a few years. Go ahead.
And the idea being is if you live south of Delmar, you live in the good neighborhood. If you live north of Delmar, you live in the bad neighborhood.
And you could replace good and bad with black and white.
Right, essentially, and you're exactly correct. And he said there is no Delmar Divide in St. Charles County. And I thought to myself, he's right. There is no bad part and good part of St. Charles County. Now, once again, you have some areas that are very, very nice. I can take you down, to Whitmore Country Club, and there's some other places which are super nice. And you've got some spots of the original cities of St. Charles. There's an area just to the east of where Lindenwood's at, which, once again, not the nicest neighborhood, but once again, well, same thing in St. Charles. I mean, same thing in Wentzville, same thing in O'Fallon. Okay, but the idea being is there's no divide, and essentially everybody's in it together. And sometimes there's like, oh, I live in Lake St. Louis and that's better than Wentzville. And the people in Wentzville says, yes, but we've got the GM plant and there's more jobs in Wentzville than are in Lake St. Louis. I get that because people come very tribal. But for the most part, my idea about the whole bit of the Westplex Chamber of Commerce is that if you don't live in St. Charles County, if you live in St. Louis City or St. Louis County, or if you live in New York or Chicago or Los Angeles, and you say, hey, there's this part, is East Central Missouri, that is really a nice area. We call it the Westplex. And it's a combination of 8 different communities, and each one has its own little flavor, but together it makes a very great area where the schools are good, the economy's good, people are good, school, crime's low. It's really nice. That's my whole angle.
So, as usual, I'll do all your marketing for you since you refused. You could go to jointhechamber.today, and you'll be directed to the Westplex Chamber of Commerce. Brad, you claim there's no divide, which is not true in St. Charles County because there are places that I can't drive my golf cart. I can't go from Deerbergs and Schnucks in my golf cart. I can't go north on Mid-Rivers Mall Drive. So I think you're really overlooking that. Once again, overlooking a key community of us senior citizens that drive golf carts. And, Brad, since we haven't acknowledged it, happy 1-year anniversary today, Brad.
Today's our 1-year anniversary. And let me just say this, which is sort of interesting. There's the Cottleville situation that the people who have lived there for 5 years and 10 years and 15 years are all upset about the people who are trying to move in there now because they don't want the area to grow anymore. Once again.
Yeah, you don't want sprawl when you're a white person who moved to St. Charles 25 years ago.
Well, the interesting
You certainly don't want all those new people coming out and invading your territory that you settled.
My former next door neighbor who was born and raised in Cottleville, and I think he said when he was born, there were 86 population Cottleville, 86 people. Now it's like 8,000. Okay. So,
I know. And hey, listen, I got to head out to Cottleville or I'm going to get dropped and blocked at a carpool lane, Brad. So happy 1-year anniversary to you.
Thanks, John. So we start year number 2 tomorrow?
That's exactly right.
Is year number 2 today? Is this season 1 today, or is we season 2 tomorrow? Or how do we do that?
Season 2 starts tomorrow. That's how it goes.
Season 2 starts tomorrow. Okay, so this is the last of season 1. Okay, John, have a good day.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?